On my incredible 65th birthday, I discovered a surprising truth revealed by my daughter-in-law. It started as a day like any other, filled with the aroma of grilled burgers and the sweet scent of homemade apple pie. My heart swelled as I anticipated the cozy celebration with my family, the familiar laughter, and the emotional toasts that made each birthday worth celebrating. But as Emily, my daughter-in-law, stepped forward with a weathered box in hand, the air shifted. I could feel tension coil within me, tightening like the springs of a well-used wrench. I clenched my fists at my sides, unsure of what she'd unveil. This wasn't just about the box. It was about expectations. In my world, hard work defined a man. I lived my life as a mechanic, prideful in a craft tinted by grease, sweat, and years of labor. While my mother quietly nurtured me, I had only known her persona as a steady rock, the woman whose dreams never made it off the ground. I had never questioned why. With each letter Emily read, a narrative unfolded that starkly contrasted my memories. "Your mom was an artist," she stated brightly, infusing life into a figure I had iconized in an undemanding light. My heart raced. What did I know of an artist? I had never seen her paint, never noticed her sketches tucked away like forgotten treasure. I wasn't just discovering my mother anew. I was confronting my unexpressed desire to be recognized beyond the confines of my workbench. The weight of this knowledge pressed against me. Did I value that hard work ethos too highly? Emotions surged. Pride waged war with resentment. If she had this hidden talent, why did I never push her? Had I wasted years adhering to rigid notions of success? My mind darted back and forth as I watched Emily enthusiastically decipher letters, each phrase unraveling a decade of suppressed creativity. My insides twisted. Fear wrecked me. Could I reconcile my identity with those aspirations escaping through the cracks of family loyalty? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily's next revelation was staggering, her hope to showcase my mother's art. The room shifted as family tension thickened, uncertainty filling the air like heavy fog. I was torn. Support my mother's memory by promoting her passion, or uphold the traditions I had ingrained in my children, believing merit rested solely upon perseverance and grit? Could it be a betrayal to risk potential favoritism for selection, putting my family dynamically at odds? Every word Emily spoke felt like slivers of glass against my conscience. I felt paralyzed, heart racing in a whirlpool of conflicting desires. Could I embrace this vivid legacy of expression while remaining true to my tools and oil-soaked hands? The night shimmered with the unresolved aches of my internal struggle, smothering me in its urgency. In that charged moment, I wondered if I could unravel my family's history or remain shackled by what I thought it meant to be a Thompson. What legacy was worth holding on to, and at what cost? I stood there, trapped in the tension, a silent observer on the brink of breaking down the walls I had built around my identity, desperately yearning for clarity that felt impossibly out of reach. The evening dragged on, laughter continuing to bubble around me, yet I felt ensnared in a web of silence. Each clink of glasses sparked yet another reminder of the discord sizzling within me, the joy of celebration clashing with my internal turmoil. I tried to engage in light-hearted conversations, but every word felt heavy, heavily laced with unspoken truths. My mind reeled, each thought colliding violently with the next. As the family gathered around the table for dessert, I found myself lost in deep contemplation. The aroma of apple pie wafted over, teasing my senses, but it was overshadowed by the realization that I knew so little about the very woman who had raised me. The letters had disclosed a different facet of my mother, a facet I had perhaps deliberately ignored. Was I so entrenched in the mechanics of life that I had overlooked the artistry surrounding me? Suddenly, I felt the urge to take action, to reclaim some semblance of control over my identity, the threads of which felt detached from the revelations. I had always believed that hard work was the ultimate virtue, but what if there existed a space where creativity and labor could coexist? A dream fluttered in and out of consciousness, a vision of helping to restore my mother's lost artistry. The thought of arranging an exhibit swirled in my mind, igniting a flicker of ambition. Yet that same ambition was burdened by self-doubt. What if I failed? Could I face the judgment of my peers, the world I had crafted around stars, forged through toil and effort? Diving into the unknown terrified me. It was as if I were trying to breathe underwater. Clenching a fork in my hand, I felt my muscles tighten with uncertainty, an iron grip around my core as I weighed the options, battling with tradition that felt both suffocating and comforting. "Dad?" My son Jake's voice broke through my reverie, drawing me back into the light of the celebration. "You all right? You've been quiet since, well, you know." I could feel the heat rise within me at his gentle concern, understanding what he referred to. "Yeah, just thinking," I replied tersely. But as I looked into Jake's inquisitive eyes, I realized it was time to confront the shadows that loomed over me. "I think we should do something about Grandma's art," I blurted, disbelief washing over me at my own words. Jake's surprise was evident as he leaned in closer, his brows furrowing thoughtfully. "Really? You're on board with that?" The room quieted, family members turning in disbelief at my sudden declaration. The realization settled upon me like a weightless blanket. If my mother's legacy deserved to be expressed, perhaps my fears did not deserve to rule my life any longer. I could channel my craft responsibly while lifting others in the process. As my voice steadied, I felt a small wave of exhilaration, accompanied by an overwhelming dread that firmly gripped my gut. My heart raced. Not only had I acknowledged my mother's legacy, but had also wielded the courage to shift my identity. Could this be the catalyst that transformed everything? With renewed fervor, I directed my gaze towards Emily, who was watching intently. "I want to help," I declared, buoyed by the acceptance of those words. "Let's showcase her art." But as family cheers erupted, something gnawed at my mind. I was stepping onto a path that had no turning back, an embrace of creativity woven with uncertainty. What would the family expect of me now? The new legacy I chose to create teetered on a cliff. The next step would demand more than merely enthusiasm. Dread filled the air like the clamor of a hydraulic lift, lifting the stakes higher. The time had come to face not only the ghosts of my past, but also the undeniable capacity for transformation within myself. How could I honor my mother while reconciling the chains of tradition still looming over my existence? It was a question that threatened to topple my fledgling confidence. The night drew to a close, filled with hope, yet soaked in anxiety. I struggled against what lay ahead, knowing the true test of my resolve was yet to come. What awaited me beyond this nervous awakening? The horizon pierced with possibility, but at what cost? The morning sun streamed through the window, casting warm rays across the cluttered workbench where my mother's brushes and unfinished canvases lay in disarray. The faint smell of turpentine lingered in the air, a bittersweet reminder of the artistic legacy I had long ignored. As I stood among the remnants of her creativity, the challenge ahead loomed larger than the quiet room. I took a deep breath, the essence of old dreams still palpable. It was time for a plan. This wasn't just about art, it was about connecting to my own identity, a bridge to my mother's spirit. I often felt like an imposter in my own life, confined to rigid expectations grounded in metrics and results. Yet here I was, contemplating a journey into the intangible world of creativity, a domain I yearned to conquer, albeit with a heart full of trepidation. I pulled out my notepad and began scribbling ideas. The words came out furiously, unlocking thoughts bottled up over years of adherence to societal norms. Mother's influence stayed at the forefront. This exhibit would not merely be a showcase of her art, but a testament to the woman she was, her struggles, and how they intertwined with my own life. Each piece could narrate a story of triumph mixed with personal turmoil, much like my journey. This act of creation would intertwine our narratives, illustrating not just her legacy, but my burgeoning identity as a creator. Yet, my confidence was riddled with gnawing doubts. Would the audience appreciate what I intended to express? How could I honor her properly when my own artistic skills barely flickered? As I paused, my pen hovered over the paper. This was uncharted territory. I felt the weight of judgment pressing down, coupled with a fear that had stalked my professional life. But was it too late to pivot? Rising from the chair, I paced, warring thoughts clashing with one another. I envisioned the faces of my peers, their critical eyes scrutinizing my every move. Betraying tradition felt like stepping off a precipice, plunging into an abyss of uncertainty. A voice beckoned from deep within, igniting a determination I hadn't felt in years. "Jake!" I called out, my voice rising with urgency as he entered the room. "Yeah, Dad?" he replied, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "I need your help," I said, the words tumbling out before hesitation could smother them. "We should start gathering her artworks, framing them, and even reaching out to some local galleries." His face brightened, an unexpected ally in my struggle, and I felt relief wash over me. "Are you serious about this?" I nodded, feeling a newfound enthusiasm surge. "This isn't just about me or about the art, it's about discovering ourselves in the process." A quiet energy charged the room, and we began brainstorming, each idea sparking the next. Framing techniques, color selections, potential memorandums to galleries. It pushed away my earlier reservations, presenting a tangible path forward. Yet the excitement held a caveat, as the realization dawned that I was now accountable to our collective vision. How would I manage to merge my rigorous world of professional projects with my desire to create? Would I have the resilience to balance both realms? I was stepping into a role that required cultivating creativity while still giving weight to hard-earned professional values. As the hours flickered by, the sketch of my mother's exhibition took shape, but the inner conflict simmered. Could I genuinely embody both my past and this new forward-facing identity? The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the room, a reminder of how fleeting time can be. I made a mental note to reach out for help from fellow artists, to learn the craft and absorb whatever tools I could. The fear bubble popped slightly, replaced by a cautious optimism. Just as I vowed to explore paths once shunned, the question lingered. Could I truly navigate this delicate dichotomy? "Let's get started," I declared, determination fortifying my resolve. It's time to breathe life into her art. As I turned back to my notes, ready to flesh out the logistics, something deeper stirred within me. The anticipation of exploring my mother's world intertwined with my own would demand far more than I anticipated. What challenges awaited me in the fusion of memory and aspiration? My heart raced with thrilling uncertainty at the thought. Little did I know, an unexpected encounter loomed on the horizon, an interaction that would challenge everything I thought I knew about my mother and myself. The next day dawned with a crispness that invigorated the senses. With a deep sense of purpose, I climbed out of bed, hardly thinking of anything else but the task ahead. It felt like a reckoning. The nerves pulsing through me were both exhilarating and disconcerting. Jake and I began by selecting pieces from my mother's collection. Each canvas revealed shades of her psyche, echoes of emotions only she could articulate through brushstrokes. I marveled at her ability to evoke deep feelings and tell vivid stories without uttering a word. It filled me with a pressing urgency. If she could express herself so vividly, why couldn't I find my voice too? As we worked, my confidence wavered. I perched over a whimsically painted landscape, and that familiar doubt whispered, "What do you know about art?" I closed my eyes, battling the creeping sensation that had followed me for years. Was I overstepping? Were these colorful expressions of my mother's heart too grand for someone like me, burdened by a history of corporate expectations? Jake, sensing my pause, glanced up from framing. "What's going on in that head of yours?" he prodded gently, setting down his tools. "It's just, I worry I'm not skilled enough, that I've wandered too far from my roots." As the words spilled out, his expression softened, encouraging me to continue, to confront the storm within. "You're not trying to be Mom. You're honoring her. You have your own story to tell, too. Look at everything you've managed to achieve by playing it safe. What if you flipped the script?" His faith in me sparked a newfound determination. "You're right. Maybe it's time I redefine what success means. This project isn't just an homage, it's a reclamation." Fueled by this realization, I dove back into the work, paralleling our efforts with the logistics of reaching out to galleries. I waded through emails, threading together aspirations with professional expectations. Each step out into that vast unknown shifted something deep within, and I began to cultivate a language of my own, one that embraced uncertainty, yet aimed toward authenticity. Days turned to weeks, and I surprisingly adopted an experimental approach. I experimented with color palettes, capturing the spirit of my mother's boldness, painting freely without the constraints of perfection that had shackled me for far too long. Even the clumsy brushstrokes felt appropriate, like a dance of discovery, where every misstep could lead to something profound. Yet the deeper I delved into this journey, the more I encountered the collateral consequences of challenging my identity. Each brushstroke revealed layers of my past I hadn't expected to confront. Memories of doubt mingled with the intoxicating hope of creation, flooding me with questions I couldn't ignore. One afternoon, while poring over fresh sketches, a message from a local gallery flashed on my screen. They requested a meeting to discuss my idea for the exhibit. The mix of elation and terror tangled in my stomach. Was this the moment I used to announce who I was becoming, or merely a chance to expose the scars of who I had been? Tension hummed in the air. Time felt like it constricted, stealing the calm I had managed to cultivate. Thoughts of potential rejection curled around me like an unwelcome fog. Yet deep inside, I sensed a shift. I was ready to face this head-on, ready to embrace the unknown. "Dad?" Jake's voice broke into my thoughts, his brow furrowed with concern. "Are you okay? You seem a bit off." "I'll be fine. I just have decisions to make." The ball of anxiety churned bigger as the meeting loomed ever closer. With resolve forging ahead, I leaned into the uncertainty. But the fabric of my past wrestled with my current ambitions. Would this path truly lead me to liberation, or would it unravel into chaos? In the quiet moments before the meeting, I considered how my journey intertwined with my mother's. Despite the unseen battles, her art echoed in my heart, urging me to rise. Yet, as the day approached, a peculiar sense of dread chilled my spine. What if the meeting unsealed secrets I wasn't prepared for? What revelations awaited me in that gallery that could shift everything I thought I understood about my mother, and ultimately, myself? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the studio, I paced restlessly. Tomorrow held the possibility of redefining my existence, yet I felt trapped in a memory-laden limbo. Every step I took echoed with reflections of my mother's journey, her art becoming both a source of inspiration and a reminder of my insecurities. Jake's voice drifted through the threshold, suggesting a break. "You've been at it for hours. Maybe take a step back? You can't rush something like this." "I can't," I admitted, feeling the intensity of my thoughts crash like waves against rocks. "It's not just an exhibit, it's my identity on the line. What if no one sees me? What if they see only her?" He crossed his arms and leaned against the doorframe, studying me with a mix of sympathy and resolve. "If they don't see you, then show them. Bring your own voice into the conversation. Let them know who you are, separately and alongside her. His words planted a seed of determination within me. I turned abruptly from him, my heart racing with the need to materialize my resolve. I began to sort through my sketches, searching for the one that spoke to my evolution. I wanted to convey my narrative, not as a mere echo of my mother, but as an artist in my own right. But with my burgeoning confidence came an unwelcome visitor, fear. The stark whiteness of the canvas felt daunting, as if it mocked my inadequacies. I grappled with emotions swirling in a tempest. Who was I to step into such a legacy? Every brushstroke felt like a battle against the gravity of my self-doubt. Dividing my time between artistic creation and preparations for the meeting consumed me. I had meticulously drafted my pitch, envisioning each word reverberating with sincerity. Yet when I practiced articulating my intentions, my heart thrummed with a dichotomy of hope and apprehension. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering between expectation and reality. "The gallery is going to see me," I murmured under my breath, trying to convince myself. But doubt clawed at me, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. That evening, as Jake returned, he found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by crumbled sketches, each one an embodiment of a different doubt, a failed attempt to reach the inner voice I sought to project. His eyes softened, but the question lingered. Would he understand the weight of my struggle? "I can't do this," I confessed, the weariness evident in my tone. "I'm lost, Jake. What if I'm not ready?" He crouched beside me, reaching for a sketch. "This," he said, tapping the paper, "is about more than being ready. It's about diving into the chaos of creation, where growth resides. You've spent so long sidestepping your desires. This is your chance to embrace the beauty in the unpredictability." His words dripped with urgency, igniting a flicker of excitement buried deep within me. Maybe the fear I felt wasn't an enemy, but a necessary companion in this process. Could it propel me beyond the walls I had built? I stared at the crumpled papers and realized they weren't failures. They were a testament to my struggle and a precursor to emerging clarity. As I stood up, re-energized, I assembled my materials. The thought of the meeting transformed into a thrilling handful of possibilities, each bursting with unwritten stories waiting to unfold. I wanted to emerge from this experience not just as my mother's daughter, but as the artist I was steadily becoming. With a more profound sense of intention, I began to sketch anew, this time allowing colors to flow freely, no longer confined by perfection, but transformed by authenticity. The canvas felt alive underneath my fingertips, the chaotic dance of hues laying bare my deeper truths. Just as I felt the rush of creation take hold, my phone pinged on the table. It was a message from the gallery, finalizing the details for tomorrow's meeting. My heart raced. Would this moment serve as the unveiling of my narrative, or merely a chapter in someone else's story? I glanced back at my emerging artwork and inhaled deeply, settling into a steadiness I had scarcely known before. Tomorrow I would have to confront the true essence of who I was becoming. But with that confrontation awaited something else, a revelation that clung to the peripheries of my mind. What unspoken truths about my mother, my art, and my own journey awaited me behind the doors of that gallery? The question hung in the air, pregnant with potential, stirring an urgency deep inside me as I grappled with what lay ahead. Morning light streamed through the studio window, igniting the room with a warm glow that felt both nurturing and intimidating. I stood before the canvas, my heart pounding with the anticipation of the day ahead. The message from the gallery still pinged in my mind like a persistent echo. This wasn't merely a meeting. It was the moment where I would lay bare my soul, drawing from the depths of my artistic journey that had been cloaked in shadows for too long. As I stared at my latest piece, the vibrant colors seemed to pulse with life. I took a step back, examining the intentional chaos, the way different shades intertwined, yet each retained its individuality. Was this not a reflection of my own tumultuous journey, The struggle between melding into my mother's legacy and declaring my unique voice? With each stroke, I felt a symbiotic fusion between my fears and my aspirations. I couldn't shake the overwhelming charge of anxiety that surged through my veins. What if they didn't connect with my vision? What if I fell short of their expectations? The subtle weight of my mother's legacy loomed heavily, threatening to overshadow the artist I aimed to manifest. It was a surrender to my insecurities, a suffocation of potential. While preparing for the day, I rifled through my sketches, searching for the piece that could represent my narrative. I needed something that encapsulated my evolution, something distinct yet rooted in the foundation of my mother's artistry. Framing my work within the context of her legacy was not merely about tribute, it was about wielding it as a launchpad into my own identity. Hours felt like seconds as I meticulously arranged my portfolio, rehearsing my pitch in front of the mirror. I imagined the crisp, formal setting of the gallery, the scrutinizing faces, the unrelenting pressure of judgment. But what if, instead of performing, I simply conversed? Jake's voice pierced through my reverie. I felt a surge of gratitude for his unwavering belief in me. You know, it's not only your art that will speak. Share your story, your journey. That's what resonates beyond the visuals, he reminded me earlier. His words ignited a flicker of bravery, and I took a deep breath, allowing the enormity of what lay ahead to wash over me. Today was not about validating my worth. It was about initiating a dialogue, a dance between the past and the present. At the gallery, the air pulsed with a mix of excitement and nerves. I arrived early, absorbing the space where my art would soon fill the walls. Every piece showcased reminded me of a different period in my mother's life, echoes of her struggles, her victories, her own evolution. As I stepped further in, an unfolding within me began to take shape. I was more than just her daughter. I was a continuation of her narrative, intertwining our stories. And then I spotted the platform where I would address the attendees. My heart raced. The prospect of peeling back the layers of my identity to share with strangers exhilarated and terrified me. It was a crucible for growth. The gallery doors opened, leading to an influx of guests. I engaged in small talk, absorbing the energy around me, noting how each interaction propelled me closer to unveiling my work. Yet, amidst the hum of excitement, a flicker of panic still resided. What if I stumbled over my words? What if I forgot to express the core of my journey? Standing at the precipice of this new chapter, I realized that this meeting was more than an exhibition. It was a confrontation with my essence. My fears and ambitions clashed, but in that moment, I knew that embracing this chaos was key to transforming it into something beautiful. As the time approached, I felt a surge of clarity. I would be bringing not just my art, but the entirety of my path to the forefront. I felt raw and exposed, but committed to sharing the intimate nuances of my journey. There, on the edge of discovery, I heard a voice calling me from the gallery. It fizzed with urgency. A question was floating ahead, hinting at disparities in perception. What had they seen in my work? The moment had come to face the reflections of my creative spirit. I counted my breaths, stepping toward the unforeseen, aware that the truth lurking in the shadows of my past and present awaited its unveiling, ready to shatter the boundaries I had erected. The moment was electric, charged with a blend of anticipation and fear. As I walked to the center, the gallery buzz faded into silence. I felt eyes piercing through to my core, a collective gaze that both terrified and invigorated me. Would these strangers see beyond the colors and lines to the turmoil they represented? What raw truths would they expose? Clutching my portfolio, I steadied my shaking hands, drawing strength from Jake's words. This was my moment to connect, to communicate not just my art, but the story of my life that pulsated behind each brushstroke. With each passing heartbeat, I felt as if the auditorium was closing in. Yet I refused to let fear dictate my actions. I had spent too long in the shadows. Today was about stepping into the light, embracing authenticity over performance. Thank you all for being here, I began, my voice trembling slightly but gaining strength with every word. Today, I want to share both my art and the journey that led to it. As the words flowed, I recognized a familiar rhythm, my heart sinking with the excitement of unveiling truths that had been buried for years. I spoke of my mother, of her influence and the weight of her legacy that felt both suffocating and liberating. I recounted moments submerged in doubt, where I questioned my place both as her daughter and an artist in my own right. Art is not just a reflection. It's a dialogue between generations, I articulated, allowing my thoughts to spill into the space with newfound conviction. It's messy, chaotic, and infinitely beautiful. My gaze drifted across the crowd, catching fragments of recognition and empathy. The connection grew palpable, and with it I felt a shift within myself. The canvas before them was more than paint. It was a testament to resilience. I began to reclaim my identity. As I wrapped up my thoughts, a wave of exhilaration surged through me. Each word I spoke unraveled the tangled threads of self-doubt and insecurity that had once clouded my path. The audience responded with nods and murmurs, and I felt seen, truly seen, for the first time. Would this newfound clarity fade when I stepped off the platform, or was this realization rebirthing my artistic spirit? But even in the haze of accomplishment, lingering questions hovered. What would they think of my art? Would my work resonate as deeply as my words? As I stepped off the platform, a knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach. These uncertainties teased the edges of my confidence, prompting a series of anxieties that threatened to overshadow the victory of my unveiling. I turned to the gathered crowd and cringed at an older woman's scrutinizing gaze, her brow furrowing with skepticism. My heart raced. She was clearly grappling with something. Was she resisting the connection I had tried so earnestly to foster? The thought ignited a flame of anxiety, urging me to question not just my art's impact, but my worth as an artist altogether. Can you really represent your mother without losing yourself? The words flickered from her lips, laden with judgment. Did they carry a truth deeper than my initial instinct to recoil? The room tightened, and all heads turned toward me, curiosity tinged with apprehension. I stood alone at the center, feeling the weight of expectation descend once more. This was no longer just about my art. Her question echoed, insistent, challenging, daring me to confront my deepest insecurities. As my thoughts raced, a burgeoning resolve ignited within me. I would reply, not just to defend my work, but to explore the meaning of identity and legacy itself. This was a defining moment, the kind that could reshape not only how others saw my art, but how I perceived my journey. I took a breath, prepared to delve into the heart of the matter, unwilling to waver under scrutiny. The voices of doubt that once threatened to drown me now transformed into a catalyst for evolution. With the weight of my narrative on the line, I would open the floodgates to truth, armed with the very vulnerability that I so often feared. The moment of revelation loomed just ahead, ready to reframe everything I believed about myself and my artistry. I drew in a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs as I faced the audience with renewed determination. "Can you really represent your mother without losing yourself?" echoed in my mind, a mantra that demanded introspection and honesty. I glanced around the space, witnessing the varied expressions. Some were skeptical, others curious, but most held a glimmer of hope, their anticipation urging me forward. "Art is an inheritance," I finally said, my voice steadying as the weight of my words anchored me. "It's shaped by our experiences, yes, but more importantly, it's forged in how we decide to reclaim those experiences. My mother's legacy is a foundation, a starting point, not a limitation." The sincerity in my voice resonated with me. I wasn't just making a point, I was defining my existence. The older woman's expression softened imperceptibly, and I felt a flicker of connection. I grew up under her shadow, grappling with expectations that felt insurmountable. Yet, it took years for me to realize that her influence is not a shackle. It is permission to explore, to evolve, and ultimately to redefine what it means to be an artist in my own right. I allowed silence to settle, letting my confession hang in the air. This was my moment, the catalyst for change not just for me, but for everyone in attendance. I was unraveling not only my own journey, but inviting them to reflect on their relationships and influences, questioning their own identities within their familial constructs. With each word, layers of fear peeled back, revealing countless colors beneath. Each stroke, a narrative of struggle and triumph. This journey is fraught with discomfort, but it is also filled with the joy of self-discovery. I refuse to be shackled by anyone's expectations or history, I declared, feeling empowered with the truth bubbling up from within. After all, wasn't art about breaking boundaries? About distilling raw emotion into a form that vibrated with truth? I felt exhilarated and terrified at the vulnerability of sharing not just the art, but everything that inspired it. I could no longer deny my complexities, the conflicting emotions coursing through me like a powerful tidal wave. And then it happened. An unexpected surge of defiance surged through me. As someone who's navigated the nuances of legacy and selfhood, I propose we celebrate the messiness of life. The fire in my belly burned hotter, illuminating an undeniable fact. I had to forge a new path, redefine my narrative. I was the architect of my existence. I had the power to turn my history into art. In that split second, I noticed a flicker of recognition in the eyes of the older woman. Maybe my words were resonating after all. To answer your question, I continued, I choose not only to represent, but to reinterpret. I honor my mother. I belong to her roots, but I also grow in my direction. I am not merely a reflection. I am an evolution. The murmurs in the room shifted from skepticism to intrigue, their engagement palpable. My heart raced, buoyed by the realization that vulnerability had transformed my fears into strength. I was connected, not just to the audience, but to a deeper sense of purpose that had eluded me for so long. But as the applause erupted, I felt a twinge of uncertainty creep back in, just as suddenly as it had departed. Was this moment enough to solidify my identity, to finally detach from the shadows? I turned my thoughts inward, contemplating the next steps on this endless path of self-exploration. Across the sea of faces, the older woman remained, her expression shifting. She seemed to grapple with a revelation of her own. Did she feel the ripples of change? Would she share her own story of personal evolution? As questions swirled within me, I embraced the sense of unresolved tension, aware that my journey was far from complete. The applause faded as I stood silhouetted against the backdrop of my work, a living testament to the truth I had expressed. The moment was heavy with unspoken revelations yet to come, and I could feel the weight of my next challenge forming. I stepped back, imagining the upcoming conversations that would follow this moment of clarity. What transformations would this dialogue spur? Would I be able to face the darkness that lingered within, the shadows of self-doubt that loomed ever larger? The road to self-discovery awaited, and I sat at the precipice of daring choices. Is this truly the path I want to take? The time had come to confront not only my past, but the identity I had yet to fully embrace. The energy of the room buzzed around me as I navigated the aftermath of my speech. Conversations erupted, people animated with thoughts ignited by my words. I felt both exhilarated and disoriented, as if I had stepped off a stage only to find the ground beneath me shifting. It was a rush, but the thrill was intertwined with a haunting echo of doubt. Did I truly mean what I had spoken? I caught sight of the older woman's shadow still lingering as I maneuvered through the crowd. This was my opportunity to connect further. As I approached, I recognized her expression had transformed. It was no longer skeptical, but introspective. What had resonated within her? What echoes of her own journey were surfacing, unearthing vulnerability in tandem with mine. "Your words," she began, her voice steady yet rich with emotion, "reminded me of a time in my life when I struggled to break free from my predecessor's expectations. It nearly cost me my creative voice." Her gaze locked onto mine, a mirror reflecting a shared understanding. That moment of honesty was exhilarating, yet stark, a juncture I had to traverse to deepen my self-discovery. I wanted to interrogate my fears further. "How did you navigate that? Finding yourself amid your influences must have been a challenge," I probed, eager to learn from her experience. She nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing as she collected her thoughts. "It was about embracing the discomfort and allowing for the chaos. I learned that art isn't just about mastery. It's about the mess, the struggle, and admitting you don't have all the answers." Her words struck me, sharper than anticipated. Could I invite that chaos into my journey? I had spent years crafting a polished facade while wrestling with inner turmoil, maintaining an illusion of clarity. What would it mean to lean into confusion rather than seek to eliminate it? The more I engaged, the more provocation surfaced within me. But doesn't leaning into that chaos risk losing direction? Pain can be an anchor, but it might also be a weight pulling me under, I challenged, grappling with the fear of uncharted waters. "It does," she replied honestly, "but the risk can lead to revelation. There's power in confronting chaos. Look at your art and how it reflects your growth. It thrives in complexity. The less you simplify it, the more authentic it becomes. Don't shy away from those turbulent emotions. Use them to fuel your progress." The weight of her feedback resonated, and as I absorbed her insights, clarity flashed in my mind. Could I truly embrace the chaos? What if the shadows I sought to avoid were the very things I needed to express myself more fully? I felt invigorated by this empathetic exchange, no longer feeling just an artist, but an evolving human, wrestling with her own legacy and the new beginnings it could inspire. "I feel like I've taken a step forward, yet I'm still considering 1,000 others," I admitted, the vulnerability startling me. "What if I fail to create the art I envision? What if I stand back in the shadows again, unworthy of the narrative I wish to claim?" She smiled knowingly, and I sensed a wisdom in her years that I craved. "That fear can paralyze or propel you. It's your choice to find out which, but you must decide to actively participate in your evolution. Choose to pursue your truth rather than flee from it. That's where true artistry exists." Her words hung in the air, a challenge I couldn't ignore. What if the shadows I fled were where my greatest strength lay? The tumult within me surged with fresh opportunity. Outside this conversation was a blank canvas eager to be filled with my newfound revelations, a fusion of the past and the present that could redefine my artistry. As the night unfolded, I made a decision. I would not back away from the darkness. I would stand at the intersection of chaos and clarity, my legacy as an artist becoming a symphony of contradictions. Yet, lurking just beyond this moment of enlightenment was a more private struggle. What other layers lay beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed in my exploration? The thought lingered, prodding at my consciousness as if inviting me into the spiral of my own history. Fueled by determination, I considered the next step of my journey, how to confront not just external expectations, but the internal narratives that shaped my identity. But would I be ready for the consequences of unearthing those deeper truths? As the vibrant buzz faded into quiet conversations around me, the question loomed: what would become of me when I encountered the unfiltered essence of my past? The deeper I reached, the closer I came to unmasking my true self, but was that a risk I was willing to take? Weeks passed since that pivotal exhibition, and with each day, the contours of my identity sharpened, casting a clearer picture of the man I was embracing. The art world consumed my thoughts, but it extended far beyond paint and canvas. It became a catalyst for introspection and growth. The piece I created became a reflection of every struggle I endured, an intersection of my mother's legacy and my newfound authenticity. I poured my heart into the creative process. Each brushstroke echoed not just the memories of my mother's artistry, but also the layers of complexity I was beginning to acknowledge within myself. My studio transformed into a sanctuary, a place where I no longer shied away from the chaos, but welcomed it as a source of inspiration. I found solid ground in both my craftsmanship as a mechanic and my budding identity as an artist. The realization settled in. Hard work and creative expression could coexist. I learned to fuse the two, embodying a multifaceted approach to life that celebrated both my roots and my aspirations. The local gallery's successful reception of my mother's tribute provided newfound validation, but what truly mattered was the recognition I felt within. Acceptance of my own duality became vital, and pride soon surged within me instead of conflicted emotions. By honoring my mother's story, I finally constructed a narrative that included my voice. Soon, Jake, alongside Emily, had become my partners in this artistic journey. Together, we organized workshops, opening dialogues about creativity and legacy, inviting others to share their stories of navigating personal dilemmas. I witnessed individuals step daringly forward, creating alongside me and sharing transformative experiences. Our collective exploration flourished, replicating the shift I had undergone. We became an unbreakable circle of ambition. Months later, I received an invitation to facilitate an art exploration workshop at a community center. At first, feelings of self-doubt crept in, akin to shadows clinging to familiar corners. However, the weight of those uncertainties transformed. I wanted to teach, to inspire, and to create joy through shared expression. I now recognized an undeniable sense of responsibility to foster creativity within others. This was not just about me. It was about lifting each other up, to find voice amid chaos. As the day drew near, a mix of excitement and apprehension surged through me. I could no longer deny the vibrant energy surging through my veins. This wasn't just about leading a class. It was the embodiment of my journey toward respect, community, and empowerment. The workshop wouldn't merely reflect what I had learned, but would mark the culmination of authentic fulfillment, rooted in the lessons of my mother's legacy. Standing before a group of eager participants, I spread the materials in front of us, paints, brushes, and paper. I inhaled deeply, feeling the warmth of connection in the room as I introduced the session. It was time to guide others in navigating their journeys while weaving through the complexities of their histories. Today, we honor the intricate narratives that shape our identities. I smiled, the weight of my past lifting slightly with each word spoken. As the participants explored colors and carried their stories onto canvas, I saw reflections of myself mirrored in their determined expressions. They leaned into the unknown with a hesitance that stemmed from a desire to find themselves. I walked among them, offering encouragement, a supportive presence that seemed almost innate to my newfound role. Their laughter and muted discussions filled the room, and I rejoiced in this shared experience. I would serve as their guide, not just through technical skills, but through embracing authenticity, turning tension into triumph. By the session's end, each individual stood before their artwork, a tapestry of emotions unfolding before us, vibrant lives crystallizing through creation. The applause warmed me from within, but it was much more than recognition. It was connection. This experience, living side by side with others reveling in their truths, solidified my place, not just as an artist, but as a mentor, an embodiment of reinvention. Reflecting on the growth I had undergone, how I once felt chained to expectations, now felt triumphant. I had conquered fears once unseen, transforming elements of my life that held me captive. I stood not just in my mother's shadow, but in the full light of our shared legacies, expanding into the boundless sky of potential. The experience was breathtaking, an awakening, a promise that my journey was just beginning. Now, standing before my students, I felt a resolve like I had never known before. I achieved clarity amidst the chaos, where once there had been hesitation. Amid the echoing laughter and the fading afternoon sun, I claimed my space, the bridge that connected past and present, marking a new chapter woven from the splendor of both legacy and aspiration. Emboldened by these aspirations, I looked toward the future. I could share this journey, celebrating vulnerability and strength while nurturing the artists yet to emerge. Finally, I relished the truth. My identity wasn't merely a legacy to uphold. It was a canvas waiting to be painted with possibility. Now is the time for you to embrace your own journey of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that keeps these transformative stories coming your way. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They deserve to embark on their journeys of growth too. You need to subscribe now. And this is the moment to show your support for authentic stories of personal overcoming. Don't wait even one more second to share.